Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Five with Fave, baby. Here at Five with Fave, we talk about the top 5 stories in sports. It might be movies, just the top 5 from yours truly. On today's segment of Five with Fave, we're going to talk about the guys who deserve most of the love on the football field. And I know in y'all's minds, we're thinking D-line at first. But today we're going to show love to the offensive side of the ball and O-line, where I'm going to talk about the top 5 offensive lines going into the 2024 season. And we want to take this time to thank Small Sliders in Marrero for sponsoring this segment. 1635 Barataria Boulevard, Small Sliders. Shouts out to them for all that they do for the show. Why don't y'all come join us every Monday this summer? We'll be there from 6 to 8, recording live on the radio, ESPN New Orleans, streaming live on New Orleans Talk Network. So shouts out to Small Sliders, Marrero. Now, before I dive into these offensive lines, it's no favoritism. It doesn't really have anything to do with favorite teams. It's just the way these teams has played last season, the guys that they have returning back to that team. In addition to that, how well these teams draft. Did they bring in anybody to improve their team on this year? So, number 5 on the list, and I know our folks down here in New Orleans won't be a fan of this, but I'm just calling it how it is in terms of best groups around the league, is the Atlanta Falcons. The Dirty Birds. The Dirty Birds, in my opinion, has a top 5 offensive line coming in at number 5. You look at guys, veterans like Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Drew Delman, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGray. By the way, he had a pretty good season last year. And even when we talk about Lindstrom, 87.6 Pro Football Focus rating at his position amongst some of the top guards. And y'all can hit me up on X at Big Fav 504. Let me know your thoughts. You may feel like your team has the better offensive line, whatever the case may be. So when you start looking at what goes into this, what's the determining factor? Well, it's a number of things. How many sacks did that offensive line give up? Right? How well did the team run? Some teams run a bit of inside zone. Some teams have your traditional runs. I think I've even seen a couple of near and far sets recently, right? So you have to take that into account in regards to the offensive line. Now, this team has a decent receiving core. Of course, we know the controversy at the quarterback position. So it is going to be important for this offensive line for Atlanta to step up to the plate and perform exceptionally well. Number 4 on this list goes to the Texans. The Texans, they really got high on my list towards the end of last season. You're dealing with a relatively young team. You got Nico Collins. You have Tank Dell. The receiving core wasn't mature in terms of age and to have a veteran in the league. And to see the numbers that C.J. Stroud put up last year, you have to credit his offensive line. Veterans like Laremy Tunsil, Shaq Mason. You look at Howard on the end. Also Green in the middle. Juke Scruggs. This team, in my opinion, they're on my watch list. They're number 4. And what showed me that was C.J. Stroud. Remember when I was talking about different elements that matter and looking at an offensive line, how well they pass pro, right? You talk about run blocking, giving up sacks. We saw that this team improved over the time. Now, in at number 3, and over the past really 4 years, this offensive line I'm about to mention has been at the top of top offensive lines consistently. This offensive line just recently had a guy retire, a staple in this league, a guy who's a 6th-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, and ended up going to a number of Pro Bowls, and Jason Kelsey. Talking about the Eagles, baby. You go across the line, you got Jordan Mailata, you got Landon Dickerson, New center now with Cam Jorgens. You still have across that line Tyler Steens, and then All Pro Lance Johnson. We know that this offensive line in recent years have been famous for the tush push, showing that they can go rugby style blocking across the line, but you want to have a strong run block system, and this team over years have really exemplified that. I know he's recently retired, but it just talked about the leadership coming out of that offensive line room with a guy like Jason Kelsey, and what Jason Kelsey was able to do in terms of be a leader. Saw him talking about some of these combination blocks up front on his recent YouTube, just really showing the type of skill set he had up front. And let's be honest, guys, like playing that center position isn't easy. It's definitely one of those positions that, it takes time to really develop and be exceptionally well at the center position. You have to snap under pressure. You have to be able to block. And I think the fact that even in recent years, that team, they lose a guy, but they still to the middle of the pack of my deal. When it comes to number 2 on the list, now this particular team has really showed up and showed out late in the season. They remind me, it's almost like they're the Texans of the NFC, the Detroit Lions. Look at Jared Goff's passing percentage headed towards the playoffs. Look how well they ran with Gibbs from Alabama. This team was good. Decker, Graham, Frank Ragnow. You talk about Kevin Ziller. You're talking about Swell. These guys, Sewell, these guys has really solidified themselves as a top line. The running game, how well they ran the ball last year. The passing game, Jared Goff towards the end of the season, even in the playoffs. Like, this Lions team has really showed me something last year. We wasn't really even checking for the Lions like that last year, but somehow, someway, they got it done. They do return some key starters on the offensive line. You look at the duel up front, when you start looking at Glasgow and Ragnow, they rank amongst 90.7%, respectively 88.1%. That duel, according to Pro Football Focus, in terms of giving up pressures up front. That's huge. That's worth talking about. They've had their struggles, right? But look at the rushing just coming out of the NFC of the teams they matched up against last year. So, the Detroit Lions come right in at number 2. Now, number 1, and the story is still out on number 1. And if y'all are just checking this segment out, this is 5 with Fave. We pick the top 5 stories in sports. A lot of time it's football, entertainment, music, and we talk about it on here. And I would love to hear from you guys, so feel free to comment below the video and or continue to check us out on our ESPN On Demand app. The Colts, baby. The Colts. Ringman, probably one of the best guards in the league, if not the best guard in the league, in Quinn Nelson. You got Ryan Kelly up front, Fry, Smith. These guys are consistent. I'm saying the story is still out on them because we didn't see a full season of Anthony Richardson. I think with this offensive line, we could have seen Anthony Richardson have C.J. Stroud type, not necessarily in how he's passed, but an offensive line for our novice football fans really gives time for the plays to develop on offense. So you do have a few anomalies in the league right now. I think Jaden Daniels is going to show y'all a lot when the blocking breaks down and he has to take over. We've seen this year in and year out with Lamar. An honorable mention offensive line of mine is of the Baltimore Ravens. But when you look at how well, particularly Quinn Nelson, this dude, even at Notre Dame, straight dog, they had to be number 1 on my list. Now, look, I think I should visit this again during football season, maybe a midi, right, through like another offensive line, 5 with Fave, a midi, to see if my list still sustains. Like, we're doing this now in the summer, but let's think to when football season is right in the heat of it. It's Woptober, right? You know what I'm saying? It's the beginning of October. I wonder how things will look then, but that's my top five on five with Fave: the Falcons, the Texans, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Colts. You tell me your top five if you disagree with it. And feel free to comment below or hit me up again on X at Big Fav 504. It's ESPN New Orleans, 5 with Fave, baby. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hello.